We're going to make a start. You've joined Sumo Logic's Cloud SIEM live demo. This is a monthly event that we hold to keep people up to date on innovations with our Cloud SIEM product. I'm Challis. Just some quick housekeeping. It's a live webinar and it is also being recorded. You will have hopefully a little bit of time towards the end of the webinar to ask any questions that you have. Whilst I'm speaking, if you do have any questions, feel free to click the Q&A button in your webinar window and make a note of your question. And then as we get to the end of the webinar, I'll take a look through those questions and we'll answer as many of them as we possibly can. So we've got 30 minutes allocated to the webinar. Let's make a start. So, the basic premise really is security operations must change, and really I guess the top problem statement, the challenge if you like, is the SOC, Security Operations Center, has to change with it. And this slide really covers the three main drivers here. So first of all, cloud migration spending is growing at an incredible 6 times the pace of general IT spending. And 3 out of 4 of every security team that we speak to agree that their cloud infrastructure generates more security alerts than similar on-premise environments. And the reality is the legacy security tools and SIEMs were just quite simply weren't built for this digital transformation and cloud environments, and have resulted in many more threat visibility gaps than we've had ever before. So migrating apps to the cloud has shifted the threat landscape and created an explosion in the attack surface. And somewhere around 67% of security professionals have said that the increase in the number of security alerts that stem from this transformation and the new and evolving threats and because of that, organizations are facing more zero-day threats, and ransomware attacks are continuing to succeed. And APTs are still an ongoing concern for every organization as well. And really, it's easy to understand. A simple misconfiguration can lead to quite a major data breach. And then finally, the vast majority of security teams are reporting that their staff experience alert fatigue, and 3/4 of these teams have determined that they need to hire 3 or more analysts in order to stay on top of their daily alert volume. And at the same time, we're facing an ongoing resource and cybersecurity skill shortage, which means you just simply can't hire enough people to address and manually triage all of these alerts that are being received. There's simply too many alerts, and you can't get to all of them. The reality of the situation is none of these traditional approaches, so using a legacy SIEM or outsourcing or hiring more experts, are going to work in the modern SOC. Organizations are going to need a modern cloud SIEM to secure the cloud journey and manage the changing attack surfaces and bring innovation back to the SOC. So that's the basic problem statement and the premise behind it. If we now come to look at Sumo Logic's Cloud SIEM Enterprise, we find it takes a completely different approach to securing organizations. First and foremost, we have this concept of automated insights. So this is really an automatic alert triage where we automate the level 1 analysts, and by doing so, this helps you avoid hiring the 3 or more analysts that we talked about in the previous slide. Cloud native scalability. So you send us whatever data whenever you want. It's really up to our cloud native SaaS to scale up and automatically ingest and process that data for you. We bring teams together through a single platform by consolidating multiple different tools. So we have the SIEM console, which we'll show you in just a second, but we also combine that with a native search and metrics and application tracing platform. So we're able to, through a single platform, support all of your IT and security needs. We also integrate things like threat intel. So we include a CrowdStrike threat intel feed. We can integrate with any taxi threat intel sharing platform. And then we also have the capability to apply Yarrow rules to binaries as well and have those integrated with a GitHub repository. So, you know, we provide the best of both worlds, really. This powerful search interface, which is streamlined, it's modern, it's purpose-built, security interface for security operations, alongside the DevOps and developer workflows available through the core search platform. We provide this from, as I said, a cloud native SaaS, which is built on top of AWS, but we're able to connect to your cloud data wherever that be, whichever public cloud it resides in, and pull that back into the platform to create and allow you to create custom correlations across all of these data sources. And then finally, we offer a tremendously rapid time to value. So we do this by obviously leveraging the cloud native SaaS, but Sumo's Cloud SIEM can be deployed very quickly and very easy. It's easy to manage, obviously, as a cloud native product. It allows us to show value to customers typically in days, from the first meeting to ingesting their data sources and then beginning to surface these insights that we talked about and bring the SOC's attention to the most critical, the most risky security incidents in their environment. And we can do that in, as I said, in days versus the weeks, months, or often many quarters that it takes for other solutions really to deploy and fine tune the so-called legacy SIEM type products. We just recently had this great validation by Gartner, who named us as a visionary in their Magic Quadrant for SIEM this year. And we really do believe that this provides tremendous recognition and validation, not only in terms of our current innovation, but also the roadmap that we have going forward and our ability to execute on that roadmap. And, you know, it really reflects the value that our customers have been realizing by using our cloud native SIEM and the innovative ways in which the SIEM helps support and solve modern security operation use cases. Obviously, if you guys want to go and take a look at the full report, you can follow the link on our website to do that. So before I continue, I'm just going to spend just this slide just to mention the fact that we have a range of security solutions supporting everything from audit and compliance use cases through to basic cloud security monitoring and analytics, and a full-blown cloud security orchestration and remediation tool, the Cloud SOAR. Today, we're going to be showing you Cloud SIEM, which is obviously our security information and event management product. And without further ado, what we're going to do is we'll flip over to the demo. There we go. So what you see on the screen here is what we call our head-up display. And this is all about situational awareness within the Security Operations Center. The main thing that you see in the center of the screen here is what we call the Insight Radar. And the Insight Radar is charting over the periods that we're currently looking at. So the 24-hour period that we're currently looking at, it's charting the 3 metrics in the top left-hand corner of records, signals, and insights. So the outer line of records are what the SIEM does as it receives and processes the raw log data. It's the act essentially of normalization. So taking the raw log data and transforming it into our schema so it can be compared with other types of log data. So a function that's obviously very common in every SIEM. We also have a rules-based correlation engine, as is common in most commercial SIEMs nowadays. And the output of that correlation engine, the correlated events or the notables or the alerts, as other SIEMs might call them, we call them signals. And obviously this is all about, and correlation has always been about data reduction. And as you can see, we're doing quite well. We're correlating somewhere around about 5 million normalized records down to a mere 500,000 signals. But the reality of the situation is, in any SOC today, you just simply couldn't put together a big enough team of security analysts to look through 500,000 signals. But the reality is, this is where you're left with all of the legacy SIEMs. They provide a rules-based or other forms of correlation in order to surface the most critical detections, if you like, in the environment. But then they leave it up to you to figure out which of those detections to start work on first. And so this is essentially what leads to what most security operations centers do today, which is this concept of alert triage. So it's really looking through the detections, trying to figure out which of the detections is the most critical, and obviously starting with that first. So it's a very onerous process. It creates a tremendous overhead, both in terms of time, but also people investment as well. And that's leading to this concept of alert fatigue, which has been quite well documented amongst security analysts, particularly those working in this alert triage function. And so the good news is with Cloud SIEM, we have this innovation which we call Insights, which automatically takes away the pain of the tier 1 alert triage and analyzes all of those detections, those signals as we call them, figures out which of those are the most risky, and then presents these collections of signals, the collection of detections, in the term of insights. And as you can see, the insights that we're generating over this 24-hour period is a mere 7, so something that's much more able to be coped with, by a relatively small number of people supporting a SOC function. And the other great thing about the insights is they allow your SOC or your security operations team to go straight into incident response or threat hunting. They don't need to do this whole tedious alert triage, which is, as we've already heard, is obviously happening manually today with other legacy SIEMs. What we're going to do is we're going to jump in just a second and have a look at one of these insights. So you can see what we're bringing together. The other types of data that you see here on the head-up display are some basic SOC KPIs around mean time to detection, respond and remediate. Insights also help us drive a workflow, so you can control the stages that the incidents go through. But again, it allows you to get a high-level visibility of the status over the period that you're looking at. In terms of new incidents and those that have been closed and are being worked on by the team. And then on the far right-hand side here, we see the most recent insight, or a summary view of the most recent insight. We see here Insight 3203, which actually leverages MITRE attack tactics to label the name, which we see here as command and control with execution. So let's jump in and take a look at the 7 insights that we've had generated by the system automatically or using data over the previous 24 hours. As we saw, we have 7 insights. 6 of those insights are in a status of new, so no one's working them currently in our SOC. We have one here that we see that's in progress currently, so one of my colleagues is already working on that. We can see that that insight's assigned to him. And these summary views are aimed really to provide the most critical status information about the insight. So obviously the name of the insight with the labeling based on MITRE attack tactics. We see who the insight's been assigned to or unassigned if it's not been working or not being worked currently. We see the entity. So the insights are always generated from the perspective of entity. We're collecting together detections from the same entity and presenting them through the insight. We see how long the insight has been active. So obviously part of the statistics which allow us to keep the mean time to detect, respond and remediate. We see that this insight here, the top one that we're looking at, is collecting together 4 signals. So one of the things that you can't see in the product that's happening under the hood is we're constantly deduplicating detections, or signals as we call them. So under the hood, we're saying, oh no, we've already seen that one, and suppressing the influence that it has over the algorithms that generate the insights. Obviously, the insight has a severity. And then finally, this global confidence here, we can see here, this one is quite low. This is a percentage score between 0 and 100. And if we compare that with the global confidence of the insight below here, insight 3204, we see insight 3204 is a global confidence of 75. So the way we arrive at this figure is partly by looking at what other customers are seeing in their detections, in their cloud SIEMs. What are the collections of signals that they're working on and confirming as valid incidents, and working through to remediation. So we're combining that cloud-sourced view of the types of signals which are leading to valid incidents with your own actions. So as you begin using Cloud SIEM and working on insights, and closing them out at the end, we're also learning in your environment which insights are true positives, and as I said, being worked by your team through to resolution. So the great thing about this global confidence figure is, again, it's just another perspective, another view on where you should be starting work first. It gives you an indication from the system over where we believe the most risky insights are, and obviously that leads you in turn to looking at that insight. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to take a look at this insight here, insight 3203, command and control with execution. Actually, it was the one that we saw on the head-up display as being the most recent insight. As we can see here, the global confidence figure is 95, so 95% what we're presenting here is of a valid concern, a valid incident, something you need to work on. We can see that the severity is high and it combines 3 signals. So let's dive in here and look at the detail. So with that one mouse click, I've just performed tier 1 alert triage. So that function that you guys are probably spending many hours over every time you find detections or alerts or correlations that you're concerned about, you're probably spending, as I said, certainly many minutes, and in some cases many hours, trying to pull together that full picture before you escalate it into incident response or to threat hunting. So as you saw, as simple as clicking on the mouse, I've come into insight 3203, and this is already triaged actually 3 signals, 3 unique signals, and is presenting them in the interface currently. And those signals are charted on what we call the insight timeline here. So this allows you to, or allows the analyst to get an overview of the incident, the insight from a timeline perspective. You're able to mouse over each of the markers on the timeline here to get an idea of the progression of the attack and which detection you're seeing. But also, as you can see, it allows you to get the breakdown in terms of over time what's happened. And the important thing here is many SIEMs struggle to correlate data over anything more than a few hours of time. But what we're able to do with the Insight engine is actually to look back over by default 14 days. Some customers look over 30 days or even longer of data. So it adds an additional dimension to the correlation. It allows us to perform these long correlation over long periods of time, which is typically impossible for other legacy SIEMs to do. And as we know, working in security operations centers, threat actors take advantage of the fact they know that things like SIEMs are not good at correlating data over long periods of time. And so they know if they take a few steps, a few actions, and then go away for a few hours or a few days and come back, that they're much more able or much more likely to fly under the SIEM radar and continue to obviously pursue their threat objectives. So as I said, with Cloud SIEM, we don't suffer from that. We're able to look back over 14 days, 30 days or longer worth of events, and obviously also chart the progression of those events over this timeline. As we can see, in this particular case, this particular insight has occurred over just a relatively small period of time, a three-hour period. As I'm beginning to work on the insight, what I should probably do is let my colleagues in the SOC know that I've begun to work on it. I can either go ahead and assign it to myself, which I'm going to do now, or if you're working in a larger SOC, you can organize your analysts into teams and assign them to teams instead. And then as I begin my investigation as an analyst, what we're trying to do here is just really to provide some overview of what they're seeing or what your analysts are seeing. So in this particular case, this insight here has been clustered around the entity of Deb Smith. So in this case, a user. Entities can be IP addresses or host names. Actually, we just very recently introduced a feature where you can choose anything from our schema to be an entity. So it allows you to really have some quite interesting use cases where you cluster the detections around things like process names or malware variants, for example, and it allows you very quickly and easily to look at your threat from any aspect that you have in your log data. As I said, in this particular case, the entity is based on username, and as you can see, one of the things that we do is we decorate the entity with data that we've scraped from Active Directory. So in this instance, we can see Deb Smith. She works in development. If we need to ping her an email, we've got her email address here and other information related to her, as I said, from Active Directory. We call these inventory sources. They don't have to be Active Directory. For example, you can also pull in inventory data from things like EC2 inventories, or indeed other types of cloud orchestration platforms as well. Working down the event, we've already seen this as high severity. Our global confidence is telling us, yeah, this really looks like a valid incident. You guys need to be working on it. As I mentioned, it's collecting together 3 unique signals. So we're deduplicating and suppressing any repetitive security signals under the hood. The last signal was seen 18 hours ago. The total dwell time was 3 hours. So that's the time between this first detection and the final detection triggering over here. And then as I scroll down a little bit further, you can see we've already labeled, this happens all automatically. This is not part of any manual alert triage. This is Cloud SIEM's automatic alert triage. We've already labeled this particular insight with the MITRE attack tactics and techniques that apply. You're also able to apply your own labels. So you can see here we've got one which is labeling it as phishing. Many organizations have their own taxonomy that they use to describe incidents. And from here you could, for example, copy this tag and use it in the search interface to go and find other incidents of the same type. And then finally, at the bottom here, we have the ability to keep notes. And obviously, if you're working in a large SOC or working shifts, this is obviously a great way of keeping your colleagues up to date and share any progress as you work through the insight. So then, let's have a quick look at the detail of the insight here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to move each of the signals into a more summarized format, just so we can see them all on one screen here. And so what we can see is this particular insight was generated initially by a signal from our Zscaler warning us about an elevated risk score event. We then had a threat intel map. So I talked in the introduction about our ability to pull in threat data from CrowdStrike, which we provide as part of our platform, or any sticks or taxi type feed, or indeed you can create your own threat intel and just upload it through a CSV. But this is what's happened here. The threat intel engine has warned us that we've got a threat intel match based on domain name in our data. And then finally, at the bottom here, you can see one of our endpoint products, in this case, Sentinel-1, has actually detected a keylogger activity. The thing to do is, again, just keep an eye on the timestamps here. So the initial, obviously, the initial infection event, the compromise event happened here, and then there was a period of 3 hours before this keylogger was detected. So presumably, the threat actors compromised the system, and then over time, 3 hours later, come back to install the keylogger. So if we want to look in a little bit more detail, the first thing we can do is just expand out each of the pluses here that we see. And what this does is it doesn't show us the entire signal, but it shows us the core information, the key information that you expect from this signal. And as we can see here, the other thing that we're doing with this data is we're also decorating it, enriching it with metadata. So we can see here that we've already looked at the HTTP URL, which the Zscaler was warning us about, and we're providing some entropy. So entropy is the variability of the variability between the characters in the domain name, and we're also able to pull out other information and just have it displayed here in the summary section of the event. The other thing you can do is you can actually click into the signal, and we now see all of the data associated with this signal, as well as a link to the rule that was used to generate the signal. So this can be obviously used for if you want to go in and do some rule tuning. We have the full rule expression that matched, as well as obviously the entity and any tags that we're carrying through from the rule level. These are the fields that we saw summarized in the previous screen, and then all of the raw data, as well as the normalized data, appears here. So we see the normalized data at the top section here, and then if we scroll down a little bit further, we find all of the data that came from this particular, in this particular case, from the Nanolog streaming service. As well as, if I move my taskbar out of the way here, down at the bottom here, we actually we see a threat name here that the Zscaler was warning us about. So if I want to continue to step through these detections now, I don't have to go back to the previous screen. I can just use these little controls at the top. So here's the threat intel match that we talked about earlier. As we can see from here, it's matching because of the threat domain. So in other words, domain names. And if we again scroll through finally to the final event, which was the Sentinel-1 warning us about the malicious keylogger. Again, we have all of the detail, including the expression that matched and triggered the detection, the signal, as well as all of the raw data available as part of the original event. So in this particular case, file path, a threat name, and also a SHA-256 hash here of the keylogger in question. And as I mentioned, we also have all of the original event data, so unparsed, shown at the bottom here, if it comes in a structured format, and you're also able to go out and pull in the raw log, which often takes a second to do. So you've got all of the data available at your fingertips there from the underlying event. There it is. Perfect. Good. So obviously I've done my investigation here. This is absolutely a valid event. So at the end of this, what I probably want to do is go ahead and I might want to go ahead and, for example, escalate it to our cloud SOAR platform for remediation. Which we have here as one of our actions, or insight actions, as well as a variety of other possibilities. But yeah, if I've completed my investigation and it's been resolved, let's say, and what have we done here? We've recovered the system. There we go. And then I just go ahead and click close insight. And the really important thing here is that you use this, the closing mechanism at the end of your investigation, because this is what helps inform this global confidence score here. So if you close out an insight that turns out to be a false positive, then the system will learn, oh yeah, that combination of signals has proved to be a false positive in the past. Okay, so that's it really for the demo. I'm going to move back to the presentation just really to cover some questions now. Before I do that, just very, very quickly, everything I've shown you so far has obviously been product. It's not just about product, it's about people and process as well. We do have a number of people that can support your deployment of Cloud SIEM. So we have obviously our professional services team. We provide premium support, a named technical account manager. And then we also have what we call Spec Ops, or our special operations team. So these guys are a bunch of hand-picked elite cyber analysts from some of the top organizations, commercial, intelligence, and defense kind of world. And they're available on demand as an extension of your team when you need them to help you get the most from Sumo Logic as you're threat hunting and responding to incidents. So bear that in mind as well. But yeah, without any further ado, I will move across to questions. So just give me a second and I'll pull up the list of questions. And we have the first question here. So the question, good question here is we're currently a Sumo Logic customer. We're using it for basic log collection and ingestion from cloud services. The UI that we use for that is very different to that's being presented. So is this a separate product? So no, it's not a separate product, but it is a separate view into that data that you're already collecting in your Sumo Logic platform. The idea of the Cloud SIEM console is to obviously provide the types of features that are of help to analysts, security analysts, as they're doing their day-to-day activities. And obviously the types of things that they need to do, as you saw there, looking at the enrichment in the data and comparing it with threat intel feeds, as well as understanding, the progression and the collection of detections here is actually quite different if you look at the way a security analyst works from those that we support for the more general search platform, which Cloud SIEM is built on top of. So thank you very much for that question. I think that actually really brings us pretty much up to time for today. Before you guys disappear, just one final slide, really, just as a shout out to you guys. Please take a look at our annual user conference, Illuminate, we call it. So happens obviously every year. This year it's happening on September the 28th and 29th, and it's a global virtual event. So please follow the link you see on screen, and hopefully my colleague May will post the link in the chat as well if you're interested in joining. But thank you very much for your attention today. We hope to see you at Illuminate, be that virtually. We hope obviously today's session has been helpful, and if you have any further questions, then feel free to reach out to us, and we will be in contact and we can discuss your needs one-on-one. So thank you very much, and I'm Alex Challis. We'll have a good rest of the day, and hopefully we'll see you again next month. Bye-bye.